Welcome back to the Final Fantasy Randomizer Summer Rando Marathon. My name is Hebbings, and we are here, as a quick reminder, raising money for the Liam Foundation, whose mission is to encourage, assist, heal, and empower our LGBTQIA+ community through respect, advocacy, and passionate hearts to promote thriving in society. So, chat, it looks like we are all set to go with our next run. So, without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to, I'm reading my controversial notes here. I think it's pronounced Crystalis, with Mashima and Code Gorilla. Take it away.
What's up, everyone? I'm Code Gorilla. I'm here with Mashima. Mashima, how you doing?
Yo! I'm scared. This seed was vetted, and everyone's like, this'll be funny.
It's got some good moments in it. Mashima, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Mashima. I play a crazy amount of Crystalis, like, absolutely insane amount of this randomizer. And I started playing Z2 recently. That's been fun.
And I'm Code Gorilla. I also play a fair amount of this randomizer, although not recently because I've been working on development for this randomizer instead. So a little bit too much time spent coding to actually play the game, but those are the trade-offs you make. Yeah, and we'll get started here pretty soon.
Mech Spokes and chat is correct. In the original Japanese, it's pronounced Godslayer.
So to talk a little bit about this randomizer, there are a lot of things. Actually, I guess let's start the run first, and then we'll start with an introduction spiel. But let's get that timer started. Are we ready on the timer?
Just tell me when to go.
I'm going to take that as a yes, question mark, and we'll get started in 3, 2, 1, go. And we're off. Alright, so Crystalis, the vanilla game is actually a fairly linear game.
Nailed it! Got Rachel skip.
There's a fairly set progression you go through the story in. And obviously, that doesn't work as well in a randomizer, so we've made some changes to it. First of all, there's a lot of different settings you can play this randomizer on. What you're going to see today is a relatively basic set of settings. But one of the things that gets added in this randomizer is actually the cave that Mashima is in right now. And this cave comes from the Game Boy Color version of the game. And the main purpose it serves in the randomizer is it connects to 2 different places in the world and opens up the start of the game. Because otherwise you have 2 checks, and you're almost always going to get Windmill Key to start going through Sealed Cave, and it's going to be the same every time. And that's not what you want in a randomizer. Yeah, honestly, adding GBC Cave is like one of the biggest, like, most galaxy brain things that the devs of this randomizer did. So, definitely a big fan of it. That said, sometimes you still do end up with the Windmill Key and go through Sealed Cave anyways.
Oh my god. Butterflies, please. No! Butterflies, please.
This is a rough set of enemies to try to deal with 0 equipment at the beginning of the game. Yeah, I definitely understand just wild warping out of there instead of trying to walk back. I think I did the same thing when I was vetting this seed, to be honest, because that room's enemies suck.
Yeah, so the enemies will level progress as we go, which makes it nice for randomizer purposes, because we have no idea when we're going to fight what. So you'll notice at the bottom of my HUD, I have a level and I have a DL. DL is how many key items I found, and that's what's going to scale enemies. Every so many of those, the enemies will all get tougher for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the reason that's done is all the enemies in the game are shuffled. They can show up anywhere, pretty much, with some exceptions. But that means you could find some of these endgame enemies in... I mean, we just saw it in one of the very early caves. We may or may not see some more coming up here in a moment. I don't know. But by kind of balancing out all their stats, you can still deal with those enemies even if they're in early game areas. Otherwise, you'd just be dying to a bunch of things in one hit, and that wouldn't really be any fun. The other thing that does is it allows you to fight the bosses in any order, and if you've played the vanilla game, you might be familiar with there is a level requirement to fight some of the later bosses where you have to be at least a certain level to be allowed to even damage the bosses. And we've done away with that in the randomizer. So you can fight a boss at level 1, you can fight a boss at level 16, you're going to be able to damage it regardless. But you might find you'll have a harder time at lower levels.
Do we have time for a quick donation?
Go for it.
We have $40 from Caron and the hats. It says, "Hi all. I'm happy to support this wonderful event with my time, my hats, and my money. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of the marathon. Also, Fizz, I hope you have your valuables secured because I'm giving you a thief for your run tonight. Happy face." We also have $27 from Odin Spack, who says, "Thank you for featuring the Fexandu Rando community during the marathon. Big congrats to Not Lob for winning, Tundra for putting on a good show, and Caron for great announcer commentary. I hear that water is bad for Crystalis, so let's this towards that."
Alright, so we were just doing a little bit of shopping there while that announcement was going on. Or at least looking at the stores. The trick is before you have a sword, you can't actually open any doors. Or you can't actually... Sorry. Let me go back to what I was saying. Without a sword, you can't get any money. That's the important thing. And that is sometimes a problem. That said, I've forgotten if you've already... No, okay, you have not picked up a sword. Okay. So yeah. Mashma is a little bit strapped for cash in the early game, although what we may see him do, we're heading over to Bryn Mawr here, we've got that Sacred Shield. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking of safe key free. Go, my friend! Be free!
That's fair. Yeah.
For those that don't know, that is an entirely meaningless NPC in the game. He does absolutely nothing, but he's my friend, and he's stuck in a terrible date. And as anyone who's been part of a bad date before knows, you just want somebody to rescue you sometimes. So I always save my friend.
The thing you'll also sometimes see some runners do is if you get an early Sacred Shield, that's a very late game piece of equipment, and it's worth a lot of money in shops. So sometimes if you pick up one of those early, you just sell it to get a whole bunch of cash and be flush with cash for the early part of the game. That said, Mashima has opted not to now, which is also reasonable, because it's also a pretty good piece of equipment. So, either way. Oh, right. We got the alarm flute in Windmill Cave, and so what Mashima was doing there is going to trigger... Talking to Zebu makes a sleeping windmill guard appear in this cave that we're in right now, which you can then use the alarm flute to wake up, and that's a check. And so, right now there's not a whole bunch of options, although that sort of wind did just open up a fair amount. So yeah, we've already...
RNG gods.
We've already picked up the Orb of Wind and also the Orb of Thunder, although you can't use the Orb of Thunder without the Sword of Thunder. But having the Sword and the Orb on these settings allows you to break walls that are weak to that element. In this case, the wall elements are not shuffled on these settings, so we already know that the...
that's boring.
The walls in this dungeon are weak to wind, and therefore we can get the rest of the checks that we left behind here.
So for anyone who wants to try this out, this is your favorite item, because it does this.
Yeah, Warrior Ring is quite good. It is arguably the best equipable, and unless you're actively racing, in which case then you probably just want speed boots. But
Speed boots makes me sad in racing, because they go on and they never come off.
yeah,
There are no choices. It's speed boots.
alright. And we're coming up on our first boss here in a minute or two, although it's the very first boss of the game. It's a fairly minor one. In terms of the goal of the game is to... oh, there's another sword. The goal of the game is to... You have to collect all the swords, you have to defeat all the major bosses, so the boss we're about to fight doesn't count towards that. Only the major ones do. You need to get flight, be able to get to the crypt at the end of the game, and then you're going to need 3 bows to be able to get through the crypt and make the final boss vulnerable. So that's what we're looking for here is 4 swords, flight, 3 bows. And you can see the boss is already down because it was not that hard of a boss. And that was a fun troll. Sword of Thunder on by default will warp you to a random town. When you pick it up in the vanilla game, it's at the end of a dungeon that's a dead end, and it warps you back to a town where you need to progress the story. In the randomizer, by default, it'll warp you to a random one of the towns. In this case, it warped Mashima back to the first town. Now, fortunately, the cave that Mashima was just in is a passageway to somewhere else, but thankfully we have another way there through this GBC cave here, which, when I was doing the vetting for this seed, I had not been through either entrance of GBC cave when I had that happen to me, and I'm like, come on, am I gonna have to go through sealed cave again? Thankfully, no, but I thought it was very funny.
Butterflies. Oh lord, butterflies.
Yeah.
You got time for a couple of donations and updates?
Yeah.
So we got a $40 donation from Dark Moon. It says, let's make this interesting. $30 to Thunder Bracelet and $10 to Fire. And with that, that has put Thunder in the lead. So Thunder's at $90, Water's at $79, Fire's at $50, and Wind is at $31. So if y'all want Water Bracelet, you're going to need to get those donations in by when, Mashima?
We probably got a good 50 minutes still. Why am I going this way?
Good stuff. And I also want to remind the chat that we have not yet met the incentive for Resurrect an NPC. We still need $80 for that incentive, and they have until...
Resurrect an NPC? About the same. Hasn't come up yet. It's once I get an opal. Basically, you're going to have me give an NPC an opal so they can be resurrected instead of me. Which, if you do it before I fight Motto 2, and I'll give you some warning when we're going into Goa, that's when you really want me to waste opals, because he is not a fun time, and you really need the free resurrects.
Absolutely.
Not having
check.
that is...
Yeah, that sounds like a rough time. So get those donations in now before the run ends.
And I've mentioned this earlier in the chat, but my thoughts on the Bracelet Bid War are, if you want to see more or less the default strategies, you bid on Thunder or Fire. If you want to see an unusual strat executed well, go for Wind. And if you want to see Mashima suffer, you go for Water.
I'm saving the world. Why won't you let me sleep here?
Yeah, so in the early game here, we're a little strapped for cash, as it tends to be. The number one thing you want for getting around are Warp Boots, but Warp Boots are typically fairly expensive, and they only get more expensive as the game goes on. The scaling factor that determines how difficult enemies are. Also determines, it makes items in item shops more expensive, and it makes inns also more expensive. But it does make armor shops less expensive, and that's mostly because they rarely, if ever, get used. There's a few situations where it comes up, but for the most part, as the run goes on, the armor becomes less and less important.
That is actually something that everyone's brought up, makes me distinctive compared to most other runners of this game. I actually value armor depending on what's going on, whereas everyone else is all about complete speed. So I'm one of the few people you'll see me like pop into armor shops sometimes just to see, because like we've talked about. Oh, I know what's coming. I know exactly what's coming. At least.
But yeah, as Mashma was saying, Mashma will occasionally find himself buying shields and armor. Honestly, I occasionally find myself doing that too. Because I kind of agree. There are situations where it comes up. It's not an all the time thing, but there are some times where you want it. Probably less important here because you've got that early Sacred Shield, but I guess keeping the early Sacred Shield is also like a point in that favor, because I feel like there are a lot of runners who would just sell that immediately for like, what is it, like $20,000 or something stupid like that?
Yeah, it's handy to get you off the ground. If something like Hell Runs were in Logic, I would actually consider selling it, because there is a very high chance I would have to do a Hell Run in this seed, and I just don't have the cash for all the medical herbs I need to actually do that.
Yeah. But thankfully on these settings, Hell Runs are not in Logic. That's referring to, there is a swamp area that's extremely poisonous. You're supposed to get in vanilla it's a gas mask, in the randomizer it's upgraded to a hazmat suit. You're supposed to get that before you go through the swamp, because otherwise you take damage very fast and you will die. But there are settings where you can make it so that you have to go through there, or it's in Logic to go through there without gas mask, hazmat, whatever.
Alright, normal I'd use the level 3 shot here, but I want to spare everyone blinky lights. And I have Warrior Ring, so we don't need to do that. But anytime if I'm charging up the Sword of Thunder to level 3, be ready for really bad blinky light.
Yeah, definitely a flashing lights warning. It's a very good question from the chat. Thank you for the obvious bait question, but I will take it. Or obvious setup question. That's what I meant to say. How is Mashma quickly swapping swords without going into inventory, and also warping back to the beginning of the game? And so one of the things, let's talk about the swords first. One of the things the game adds as a quality of life change is it allows you to swap between swords with just a controller input shortcut on your controller, which is great. Extremely useful. Otherwise, you'd have to go into the menu like that every time you want to change swords. And it gets to be kind of a pain in the butt, especially if you're going through an area where it's like, well, the walls are weak to one thing, but there's two types of enemies, and the first enemy is weak to a second thing, and the third enemy is weak to a third thing, and it's just a pain to go into menu every single time. Anyone who has speedrun this in vanilla, speedrun the vanilla game, will gladly tell you all about that. The other thing is wild warps. So in the vanilla game, there's essentially a cheat code you can do where if you do a certain button combination on controller 2, you warp between various spots in the game, and there's 16 of them. And it's essentially like a debug tool that was left in the game, but it lets you get around the map very quickly. That is mostly disabled by default in the randomizer, where it's replaced with a single location, which is back to the start of the game. And that just makes some things nice for the randomizer. It means you can never get wrapped by going through a transition. You always have access to get back to the beginning of the game. And also the controller shortcut has been updated so that you can do it on controller 1 and don't have to have a second controller plugged in.
Let's see, community jokes are on.
Yes, community jokes are on, which means you'll see some randomly misspelled names, or you'll see some name replacements. Like we got what's supposed to be telepathy has been called ESP here. In any case, yes, we're going through Goa Fortress, which is where most of the major bosses in the game are located. We've gone through the first 2 floors for the most part. We were at the boss of the 2nd floor. Yeah, Mashima is about to find out that he can't actually fight this boss because it is weak to fire. One of the flags that is on in this flag set is randomized enemy weaknesses. So the bosses are typically weak to one element. And what that element is randomized.
Time for a couple quick donations.
Sure, go for it.
We have a $100 donation from Aeolus' Marathon Hype. Here's $50 for Require War Mech tonight for FFR, and another $50 to give Fizzle the best class ever, the Black Belt. Thank you so much for that generous donation. We have $25 from Mikey Met, says, "Woo, randomizers! Please put this towards the Gyre boss for Time Spinners randomizers on Sunday." And chat, quick update from Dark Moon. It looks like we are $152 away from beating Summer 2023 Day 1. So if y'all like beating records, get those donations in now.
So, one of the things we got by going into Goa early, because it's supposed to be a very late game dungeon, is we got the Orb of Water, which that lets you, as you can probably saw there, freeze rivers and turn them into ice bridges so that you can get to, in this case, the top part of Mount Hydra here. And since we're also able to break these walls, we can get most of the items here. There's one item at the very end that requires light. So that is a mimic. There are mimics in this game. They look like chests and then they jump out and attack you. Unless you pick the option to not randomize them, they're randomized among all the chests. So you can find them almost anywhere. There is actually a setting you can turn on called Oops All Mimics, where every chest is a mimic. And to get your items, you have to kill the mimics to get the actual real chest inside. But we're not playing that this time. That said, it is still kind of worth killing mimics in this game, just because they drop way more money than anything else. So occasionally, if someone's hurting for money and there's a mimic in a convenient spot where you can reload quickly, you'll see someone go into an area, kill a mimic, leave, come back, kill a mimic, because they respawn every time you reload the room. So you can farm quite a bit of cash that way.
Those mummy-looking enemies are called Tornel Huggers. Because infamously, they have ruined one of our runners named Tornel's day. I don't know how, though. They seem to just want to cheer him up and hug him all the time. I don't have
Cornell. There he is in the chat right now. And more mimics.
Oh, actually, that's the sword kill all. Okay. Let's do a supply run.
So yeah, as mentioned, there's only 2 shops available to Mashima right now, and only one of them has useful items. So, it's a supply run. We're probably going to be back at Bryn Mawr quite a bit. But yeah, having all swords and all orbs already is pretty nice. That means any wall can be broken, you know, any rivers that need to be bridged can be bridged. Those tend to be the things that open up a lot of progression. And as we mentioned, buying a little bit of armor, because I imagine you're thinking about going back into Goa.
No.
So, something to note, on this flag set, it is guaranteed that you are able to access level 3 swords before you have to fight any boss that is weak to that element. You know, as you can see, we got the Storm Bracelet very quickly, and that's because the logic forced us to go through Kilbesk 2, which is the boss that's at the end of this floor, pretty early on. And that boss was weak to Thunder. So, technically, what Mashima is about to do here is out of logic. That said, it's some of the easiest logic to break, as long as you're competent at the boss fights. Some of them are easier than others. Sabera tends to not be super difficult, but can be really long, because Sabera is very tanky.
And if you remember way back at the beginning, we talked about how enemies scale. Bosses also scale.
Yeah.
So it is actually in my best interest to try and put down the harder bosses earlier rather than later. Because Motto 2 at full power has wrecked people's days horrifically. These settings aren't as bad, but in our nasty settings, he has like almost completely destroyed some of our top runners just for how hard the seed gets and how tough he hits you.
Yeah. Or if you're playing with the setting, with some settings, I remember one particular seed where basically the very first thing you did in the seed was fight Motto 2. Like, there was almost nothing else you could do first. That was a wild, wild seed.
The best one was the early one, and it gave you Iron Necklace, so Motto tanked on you. I was dying laughing.
It is always nice when it happens.
No weapon to use.
Yeah. This Sabera fight should not be terribly difficult.
Out of the wall!
It's just going to be a little tedious, but Warrior Ring for offense and Barrier for defense, like, this is not going to be tough. And honestly, you don't even need Barrier that much if you understand how her pattern works. Which Mashima clearly does.
Another thing is at higher scaling, when you start to get her down, she starts increasing stupidly fast.
Yeah.
Dodging her shots can hit a point where that's no longer a problem. Dodging her is the problem, because she just flies at you at lightning speed.
And with that, we're on to Spike Town, also known as Motto's Floor, which is mainly worth noting because all these spike floors hurt as you walk through them. There are a couple different ways to mitigate that, like, for example, the hazmat suit. I forgot that the hazmat suit was right there.
Perfect timing.
Which is very funny. I think it's technically out of logic because you have to go through the spikes to get it. But once you get it, going through all those spikes is now in logic. So, No, statue glitch is not in logic on these settings. In fact, none of the glitches are enabled. They're all specifically patched out.
Hey, an opal.
Alright, folks, that's an opal statue. If you want to see Mashima revive an NPC, now is the time to work towards that incentive. Because if you want Mashima to waste that opal, Motto 2 is coming up.
And we're all here for charity, so if you guys want to keep donating toward that, I will burn all the opals I find. So right now we have one that you can donate for. But if I find more, and you want to donate to have me revive, all these poor innocent people that are going to die in this game, I have no problem doing that.
As a quick reminder, chat, we need $80 to burn an opal. So we need those in by when?
Before the end. So basically when I hit go mode and I'm getting ready to close out.
Sounds good. Well, we did just get $25 from Just Chris that says, when I was vetting the seed, it took me 1 hour and 2 minutes. I'd offer hints, but my brain has forgotten all the details already. As most of us randomizer runners will attest, you just kind of like run off RAM and your brain forgets as soon as you get done with the seed.
Very true. I remember some of the key bits, but I don't remember all the in-between stuff.
Oh no, it's a hellway. Go away, butterfly. No, go away! Go away!
Okay. So, the reason this is called the Hellway is because those moving platforms are notoriously flaky. If you get hit by anything while you're on them, including projectiles that aren't supposed to affect you, because you have a shield that makes you immune to them, you just fall off the platform, or sometimes through the platform. And then you have to walk all the way back upstairs. And there's like 4 of these pits in a row that you have to get through on that floor before you get to the boss. And the thing is, you might look at this and think, wow, Mashima's so unlucky that the enemy randomizer would put these annoying moths in this hallway. But then you look at the vanilla game and realize that's what the developers did too.
Yeah, this game is a blast until you get to the end on vanilla. And that's when the developers are like, this is taking not enough time. We need to make this game exponentially harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the invisible guys, not the Warlocks, the Wraiths are here too. Wraiths, Shadows. I forget what the official name for them is, but... Oh, those guys, yeah. The way those enemies work is they cannot be damaged at all until you use some sort of level 3 magic on them to make them visible, and then they're weak to one element.
Alright, time to do this. So I don't want to waste that opal.
Alright, 3rd time's a charm, I believe in you. This is a room that can absolutely ruin runs. Because it's just, again, it's just 4 of these you have to get through in a row. And there can be so many enemies. I think I made it through without fall. No, I know what I did. Because all of this is out of logic, I didn't come back here until much, much later.
Whatever.
Well, you made it through. That's the important part. That's a checkpoint. You've probably seen at this point Mashima reset a bunch of times. This game is actually pretty kind about having checkpoints fairly regularly. And one of the things that's true about checkpoints is whatever status conditions you have, do not save on checkpoints. So if you hit a checkpoint and you have a status condition you need to clear, just reset. Just soft reset and reload, and you'll be fine. This is Motto 2, the pinball ninja himself. As you can see, this is his pattern, such as it is. Fairly random movement, very quickly all around the room. That was a pretty clean fight, though. So... Motto 2 is faster than Motto 1, but both Motto 1 and Motto 2 are the same speed that they are in the vanilla game, as far as I'm aware.
Don't sleep on Motto 1 either. You get cocky because he's much slower, and then you get bashed in because he's much slower.
Yeah. Motto 1 can be particularly annoying on these settings, because one of the flags that is not enabled is a flag called RO, or Orbs Not Needed to Break Walls, which lets you break walls with the level 1 charge shots instead of needing the level 2 charge shots to do it. A side effect of that is level 1 charge shots are stopped by walls, where level 2 charge shots are not, unless you have that flag on, in which case the level 1 charge shots are also not stopped by walls. And the thing is, Motto 1's arena is very small, and he spends most of his time in the walls. Ooh. Yeah, I will say, Just Chris in the chat is right, and that honestly is true for all the bosses. If you have the bracelet, the bosses become trivial. Ironically, that's the one place where the Blizzard bracelet is actually just fine, because bosses don't take knockback from attacks. So the main drawback to the Blizzard bracelet is the fact that it will gather all the enemies up because it moves in a circle, and then fling them back out at you. And that's why most people don't actually like using the water bracelet that much, the Blizzard bracelet. But that doesn't really matter for bosses because they can't get knocked back. Also, nice almost vanilla ivory statue. Honestly, really convenient here because the ivory statue is what you need to cure Slimed Kensu, who is just above us, and we'll be talking to him shortly. So yeah, this is Kensu. He's been turned into a slime by the boss that we just talked over.
I saved your life! You give me a medical herb?
And that's Goa. That's Goa done fairly early on. So that is 4 of the 8 bosses that we need to deal with. The ones that we still have to worry about are a bit more scattered throughout the world. You've got Kilbesk 1 at the top of Mount Saber North. You've got Sabera in Sabera's Fortress in the middle of the ocean. You've got Motto 1 at Chiron Temple after the Chiron Massacre has been triggered. And then you've got Dragon 1 in the Pyramid in the desert. So, and all of those have a lot more requirements to get to.
Alright.
Time for
How to do something
time
awful. Yeah.
Oh,
Dude,
boy.
we got lots of time for donations, because I'm about to get everyone kidnapped, and they're going to be in a mountain mining now. So some
Perfect.
good from donations would be nice to offset my bad.
No good quite yet, but I do want to go ahead and give us an update on the pickup bracelet. There was a lot of talk of bracelets, and I wanted to get this in. We're at $41 for the wind bracelet, $50 for fire, $89 for water, and $90 for thunder. So thunder bracelet is in the lead. If y'all want to change that chat, you have until go mode to donate to change that. We also have the incentive to resurrect an NPC. Currently, Mashima has 1 opal. If you'd like to see him waste that on an NPC, feel free to donate $80 and you can kiss that opal goodbye. And as another little incentive, in case those weren't good enough for you, we do have a prize open for today. Our prize is a Final Fantasy character's needlepoint, which I believe is on stream. So if y'all want to be entered to win that, is a $30 minimum to be entered to get that lovely little piece of art.
So what Mashima was mentioning briefly is that one of the things that you have to do is Mount Saber North. And the way to get to Mount Saber North is there's a couple of triggers you have to get through. And if you're not playing with any of the glitches, which we're not, you need 2 items. You need teleport and telepathy. And then you need to trigger the Leaf kidnapping, which involves you have to talk to Zebu's student, talk to the Leaf Elder. Those you usually do at the beginning of the game anyways, because they're both checks. And they both give you items. But then you have to go talk to Zebu in the cave, then get to the wall that's behind Zebu, get behind that wall, either by breaking it or going around the long way, then come back to Leaf and talk to the rabbit in the shed with telepathy, and he lets you know that people came and took everyone in Leaf away. And then you can finally actually get through the Mount Saber North entrance. Also, you need teleport to get through the Cordell Plain side. There's 2 separate triggers, which is why you need teleport and telepathy.
The only reason you need teleport is because Tornell's a jerk and just won't let you up the mountain until you have teleport. Like, he is just not the nicest person. You're trying to save the world and he is brick walling you every chance he gets.
Yeah. Probably hugging a bow, too.
Okay. So... get to there, but there's nothing there. Oh, I know what else I can do. Do this first, though.
So, concussed gamer, yes and no. As just Chris mentioned, the firing pattern has been changed, so you don't get a completely free spot against Dinah. But even with the buffs to Dinah, it's still fairly easy. And there's a spot where you can stand if you have barrier and be completely safe, as long as you're running barrier. So, since we got barrier early on in the seed, I would not expect Dinah to be even remotely a challenge for Mashima at the end of this.
Yeah, when and if the randomizer gets updated, Dinah bodying and destroying everybody has been on Steve's mind for a long time, so I'm pretty sure that's high on his list to buff Dinah in some way to wreck us. And Steve likes to be a very funny person, so I feel like one day Dinah's just going to change and no one's going to know until it happens. And there's going to be a lot of posts of, why is this so hard?
That's very possible. If one of the developers tries to organize a community race in the Crystalis community, randomizer community, be afraid.
Hey.
Speaking of teleport, there's teleport.
Oh, shoot. Oh, there's Bryn. Now here's Leaf.
Yep, still gotta talk to the rabbit. You can see everyone's missing now, except for the one rabbit in this shed. Telepathy is what lets you talk to animals, so that's why you need telepathy. And, yeah. So we're off to Mount Saber North. Yeah, go for it.
We got a $40 donation in from Luffy. It says, let's see what this opal stuff is all about. I'll start. So chat, that puts us halfway to burning 1 opal. And I believe, Mashima, you said we could burn multiple in this run if you get more than 1, right?
Yes, there are 3 in the game. They are randomized in the locations, so I can't guarantee finding them. If there's money involved, I will go and attempt to find them, though. But so far, we have found 1 of the 3.
And if it really comes down to it, I do have access to a spoiler log, so just in case.
You heard him, Chad. That's $240 on the line.
Yeah, this is the first man we can save. This is Ski Free. He's our buddy from the bar. He took a bad spill on this mountain, like some people do. So he really needs an opal to help him. So you guys should really get your donations in so we can revive him with an opal. Ow.
So this is Mount Saber North. It looks a lot like Mount Saber West. There's not really a lot to say about it, other than there is a gigantic slope that runs down basically the entire mountain, and B, there's a boss at the top of it. Kelbesk 1 is at the top of the mountain, and I guess C is if you also have the prison key, or key to prison, after you beat that boss, you can get through to a new part of the world. It's sort of the vanilla progression is you come here, you get the key to prison, you fight the boss, and then you get to move on to the next section of the game. You found yourself a nice little Mashima hallway here, I see.
Yes, I am so happy.
So these enemies are Medusas, and the main reason they're relevant is that they're kind of slow, they're kind of plodding, they have large hitboxes, and they give a decent amount of experience and gold. So they are really good farming targets, whether you need experience or you need money.
They're also very lethargic, so they don't tend to come at you that often, which makes it very good if you need to clear status conditions, because they can petrify you, which clears all status conditions and wears off over time. And those guys won't even come at you and do anything while you're petrified. They tend to just wander off.
Yeah, in general, you can only have one status effect in this game, so there are times where it's like, if you have a bad status effect, the best thing you can do is to get a different status effect. And yeah, as mentioned, petrification is kind of the best one if you're in a good spot for it, because it goes away on its own after a short period of time. Also, yes, as mentioned, if you get petrified while you're swinging your sword still has an active hitbox for the entire thing. Including if you pause the game and unpause the game, it resets you to your default pose, but you still have an active sword hitbox, even if there's no sword sticking out in front of you. So, and enemies can and will occasionally run into that. I actually had it happen to me with a Cornell hugger the other day, which is like, you almost never see that happen.
Nice.
Might have been while vetting the seed, in fact.
My favorite little glitch that you can end up with is if you have Warrior Ring equipped and you're going into the Dragon 1 fight, and you do an attack as it starts his little, like, intro animation, the game will just think that you're in that and repeatedly fire. So as the fight starts, you're already machine gunning him down. It's the best when you can get it to trigger.
Yeah.
So, like, imagine just, like, M. Bison complete with its full, like, show-off, fluttery, float down, and some dude's just machine gunning him the whole time.
That'd make the whole Satan fell from heaven monologue a little awkward.
I would just say take your headphones off before you do it, because you also get the sound effect played the entire time. Oh no, we're poisoned! Good thing this is a checkpoint. Alright, we are coming up on the boss here. Kelbesk 1. We've already seen Kelbesk 2. Honestly, of the two of them, Kelbesk 1 is more threatening. Because he'll throw out these little ice shards all over the arena, and they can show up anywhere, and they just kind of come right for you. It can be a bit of a pain to dodge. Although, he's being nice this time and spawning them up high enough that they just go off screen, and the boss fight's already done.
What?
And now you get the most convenient key to prison ever.
What? I was expecting to do this mountain multiple times.
I did remember that part, because it's like, oh, that's actually super nice. So yeah, if we hadn't found the key to prison there, Mashima would be forced to go somewhere else, because he'd done everything he can do here, and then when he found the key to prison later, do that entire climb again to get here, which this is Portoa.
Well, I'm stomping Tom. I love it. There is a suggestion box in our Discord, and you can throw in new names for things. And if the developers like it, they will throw them in. We've gotten such wonderful names, such as, what is it, Captain Telefrag?
Big fan of Captain Telefrag. General linebacker. Alright, so Mashima is on his way over here to see Rage immediately. Rage wants to see that you have the Sword of Water, and then we'll give you an item and let you through to see the answering machine here. Or if you're playing as Messia here, I like to just call it a full-length mirror.
Nah, let's go ahead and do this vanilla-ish.
The answering machine there isn't strictly a check, but it's a necessary trigger to unlock a couple of other checks back in Portoa, which Mashima was just deciding there whether to go immediately back for those checks or to come check some of these side caves first. And has opted for the side caves. This is Crystal Plant Cave. It's a fairly short tunnel that's got an item in the middle and an item at the end.
Gorilla, I did have a question for you, not from the chat, but out of my own personal curiosity, since you're part of the dev team. Have y'all looked into potentially removing the flashing lights or accessibility for photosensitive players?
It looked into a little bit. And I think it's something that like to do. It's finding a way to do it consistently in a way that doesn't just make the problems worse. But it has been looked into. I think someone's even done a patch for it at one point. But it's been a while since I've looked at that, to be honest. And also, yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say more accessibility options to get more people playing games is always great.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, when I say I'm one of the developers, I am absolutely tertiary developer on this game. I mostly made the emo tracker tracking pack, and I'm working on a couple of other things. Most of what you're going to see here is going to be Steve Hacks or J. Roboy.
I mean, so Code is being modest. If you're starting this game for the first time, very much load up his emo tracker package. It is absolutely stellar in being able to help you with checks, figure out Go, on lots of other things. You put a lot of work into it. Absolutely the best, couldn't say that enough. So he's done a lot. Just mostly it's been more like player side and not actual like gameplay side. But what he's added for the players means a lot.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
Sure.
I will say that that pack also recently had a major update, so it now supports auto tracking as well. Big shout outs to the Sir Archibald, who did most of the work on that particular update. Really cool to have that in. Alright, we're just taking care of a couple of the little trade-in side quests around Portoa. There's a whole bunch of them. Depending on your settings, they can get real convoluted, but these are simpler settings for that.
Dance time. I love dance time.
Angry Sea has, like, the best music in the game. Although all the music in this game is really good.
Okay. Let's still do this.
Alright, so we are looking for things to do. And honestly, we went out of logic so long ago that the actual semblance of logic is kind of out the window at this point. Yeah.
My eyes will be fine.
The eyeglasses are not the hazmat suit.
My body burns, but my eyes are fine.
I'm thinking it would be fun if we could just completely mix the key item and equipable menus so that you could have unidentified items mix up the hazmat suit and the eyeglasses.
Be like, all right, time to go to the poison swamp. Oh my god, that is not the hazmat.
Alright.
Still have that, right? Yeah.
So we've rescued a small oak child.
Yeah, I refer to her as Terrible Mother. She left her child in a horrific monster-infested swamp. Guess they
And
live in that swamp.
here we are to beat up Stom. And by beat up Stom, I mean run away! Run away and win by default. So that is actually a glitch. That is one of the few ones that there is no option to patch it out. In a couple of, on certain settings, that can even be required. But the way that works is what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have basically a punching match with Stom there, and the way it's designed is you can't win it the first time. You can't win it the second time. I think the third time you can win it if you're a task.
No, you can do it the third time. I do it. Hurts my hand though. I usually choose fourth time, but
Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, is second time you can win it if you're a task. Third time, it's painful to do so. And then fourth time, you can actually just win not too difficult. But obviously that takes a lot of time. So what you do instead is you equip a pair of warp boots, and once the fight starts, you use the warp boots, and if you teleport to Leaf, Amazons, or Sahara, you automatically win the fight once the teleport finishes. And basically what it has to do with is your X position on the map, maybe Y position, your position on the map when you load in. That is what ends up being important, is it says, hey, you're high up enough on the map that clearly that means you've pushed Stom to the far wall, because that's the only way you could have gotten that high. So you won the fight. Good job. So the reason for entering the dungeons twice is the way the checkpointing works in this game is anytime you enter an overworld area or a handful of other zones throughout the game, it sets an automatic checkpoint. So when you're coming into this cave, the smart thing to do is run into the dungeon, immediately leave to set a checkpoint, and then go back in. And that way, if you die in the dungeon, or if you just end up in a position where you don't get anything good out of the dungeon, you can just reset, go back to that checkpoint, and continue from there. And while I was explaining that, we got one of the most important items in the game, Flight. It does exactly what it sounds like it does. It lets you fly.
Which is pretty broken, because it completely removes the whole point of having Sword of Water. Who needs to make ice bridges when you can just fly over the river?
Yeah. It also just means getting through dungeons becomes a lot easier because you can just fly over all the enemies. And then there's a handful of places in the game where you just straight up absolutely need fly to be able to get items. So at this point, we are well on our way to having our required items. There's still a few more things we have to find, though. So we're still looking for 2 bows, and change and shell flute, I believe, are the 2 other, like, required items. And that's mainly because you need shell flute in order to get to Sabera's fortress, and you need change in order to get into Chiron to be able to fight Mata 1 in the Chiron Temple. Yeah, in the vanilla game, Flight is the last spell you get, and one of the very last things you get in the game, period, before the very end of the game. And that's because it just really is that powerful. Honestly, the distribution of items is mostly random in the randomizer, accounting for logic, of course, but with the one exception of Flight. There is actually code in the randomization process that specifically pushes Flight into a later sphere because it is so overpowering when you get it in an early sphere.
And items aren't, like, specifically put in front, but when it runs logic, most seeds are doable if Flight is early because of how much it unlocks. So if it wasn't that way, that it purposely tries to put Flight behind, we actually ended up with a lot of seeds that had Flight right off the bat. So it's just more of a safety thing, so we don't always have Flight right in our faces.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, as just Chris speculates in the chat, I got Flight before I went back into Goa, so I just flew over the pits and didn't really have a problem with them. Actually, not only did I do that, I did Goa backwards at that point, so I just intentionally dropped through the pits because it routes better that way.
Yes. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that then.
Time for a quick donation.
Go for it.
We have a $30 donation from Felicin. Says, sounds like the Liam Foundation can use some help from War Mech Security Services. So here's some money to give queer folks some nuclear-powered protection. And Tiamat, too, I guess, with a required War Mech.
So, an important thing just happened there. We just found the 3rd and final opal statue. So, if anyone wants to see those NPCs revived, get those donations in. We could go up to 3 of them. Also, Dragon 1 died.
That was a boss, I guess.
The thing about that boss is that boss doesn't have iframes, so it dies very quickly. Like, very quickly.
And as a quick reminder, chat, for that opal, we only need $40 for our first opal, thanks to a generous donation from Luffy. So 40 bucks is all we need to, you know, burn a very valuable resource that Machima could probably use.
Alright, we've got Machima heading
What bracelet
back.
is in the lead for tower, just out of curiosity?
So right now in the lead is Thunder with $90. Water is right behind it with $89. Fire's in 3rd place with $50, and Wind is at $41.
Alright, so if it's Thunder, then I really don't need these opals. It's perfectly fine. I can throw them to the floor right now. If it was Water, though, man, I'd be panicking.
So what I'm hearing, chat, is, what is it? $201 to $202 to get Blizzard Bracelet into the lead and all 3 opals wasted.
Please don't.
It's only a small sacrifice of money to make Mashima sweat a little bit. It's fine.
I haven't found refresh yet. Please don't. Get these out of the way.
I want to say the other thing when I was running this seed to vet it that I did was I was trying to stick harder to logic, just to see how the logic played out. Also to just take a look at like how the tracker works and all that stuff. But that meant I didn't go back into Goa for a while.
Ornell's a funny guy. Here, use these teleport places. He hands me warp boots.
Something, something, something. Teach a man to fish. Hand a man a pair of boots. Will teleport for a day. And that's all you care about because he's somewhere else now. If you teach someone teleport, they can teleport back to you and bother you again. If you just give them warp boots, no more problem. There's not a whole lot to do on the ocean right now.
Now that I got my glasses on, I can see this giant secret door.
We're gonna wake up Kensu here. Kensu is all over the place in this game. He hogs like 4 different checks. And he spends most of his time like sleeping or complaining, which, to be fair, I can relate to.
Sometimes he's a real jerk, and he creates a quest chain with himself that ends in a medical herb. Alright,
one other thing we can do on the ocean right now is calm the ocean. Well, I believe you have a hint as to what that item is already.
Yep, it's shield ring. Don't need.
That's what I thought I remembered, so we're just gonna ignore that. Shield ring is an defensive accessory that it like triples the shield value of your equipped shield, which sounds impressive, but compared to the things that almost all of the other accessories do, doesn't really mean much. So really, the only reason to be up there in Joel is to get the teleport spot for Joel in case we need, or sorry, Swan. Is to get the teleport spot for Swan in case we need to come back later. Alright, so we are climbing Mount Hydra again. I forget if you've picked up the key to Styxy, if that's where we're headed.
I have not.
Alright, so in that case,
I had.
We're just heading to the summit of Mount Hydra, which has a single solitary item at the very end of this dungeon that you have to fly to be able to get to. Which is why Mashima didn't pick it up earlier. But I suppose at this point you're running out of places to go.
We're getting near that uh-oh panic moment. Okay.
Paralysis. Paralysis has a couple of decent uses. At this point, I think this might be the only one left. Maybe there's one other. But yeah, it does exactly what it sounds like it does.
Yeah, there are no level requirements for Dyna. There are no level requirements for anything in the game. So you can torture yourself as much as you want by putting on like no bow mode, so you can go straight to the end at the very start.
I will say, paralysis can be a nice combat tool in the early game, but probably not necessary with Warrior Ring and everything else that Mashima has going on. Kensu did give us something useful in Swan there, which is the Shell Flute. You need Shell Flute to get in here, because if you try to just fly over into this cave, it says, hey, the cave entrance is underwater. Good luck flying through the water, idiot. I may have paraphrased a little bit, but you get the idea.
It's okay, I'm pretty sure it's Tornell using telepathy to taunt you some more. Hey!
Ooh, we got our second bow. It means we're, what, 2 items from go mode? A third bow and change? Which means if you want to contribute to that, that bracelet bid war, or to the Opal Revive an NPC, get those donations in.
Although I might have to go bracelet hunting.
Just as a reminder for chat, we're only $40 away from that first opal being burned. And if you want a little extra incentive, a $30 minimum donation tonight will get you entered to win a Final Fantasy character needlepoint artwork, which I believe is being shown on stream. So if you want to be entered to win that artwork, $30 is all you need. And if you want to throw $10 more towards that opal being burned, more power to you. Gentlemen, do we have a quick second here to read what we're donating money for?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are here raising money for the Liam Foundation, whose mission is to encourage, assist, heal, and empower our LGBTQIA plus community through respect, advocacy, and passionate hearts to promote thriving in society. One of the current works is a new space opened in June 2023 and expanded the services offered for more events like Open Mic Night, Queer Elders Brunch, Name Change Clinic, and Queer Families Meetup. So Liam Foundation always doing amazing work for the community. So an excellent cause to donate towards.
All right, so while that announcement was going on, we did find the third bow. So we've now got the Bow of Moon, the Bow of Sun, and the Bow of Truth. How'd you like that ESI? 2 mimics and 2 bows.
Oh, jeez. Bows are nice, but no change means I'm probably gonna have to crypt dive.
There is that possibility.
It's a good old Captain Telefrag again.
Yeah, this is the vampire refight. It's the exact same as the first one. Oh, there's that Blizzard bracelet. Perfect for tower, so I hear.
We tried.
Bit like a cursed item there.
Keep asking J-Ro to give me the ability to huck the Sword of Water off the tower. He just won't do it.
There's that flame bracelet too, so I guess you won't have to bracelet hunt.
Nope. Is Thunder still in the lead?
By $2, it sure is. So, chat, if you want water to be afflicted upon Mashima, you gotta donate $2 towards that incentive. Right now, Thunder's in the lead with $90, Water's at $89, Fire's at $50, and Wind is at $41.
I've got another reason why you should bid on water. It's because you don't want to see the flashing lights warning from the flashing lights from Sword of Thunder. Save everyone's eyes. Donate for water. And you don't have much time.
Hey.
Like I said, you don't have much time. We're in go mode. I may have looked up where all that was and realized, we're nearly done here.
Dang it. I'm framing Stom, right? Believe that's a
Yes,
thing.
that incentive was met.
Alright. Oops. Whatever. I got plenty of rings. We can make this work. Gotta get all the guards in on this. Come get them, boys!
Silly memes. No, I saw him, officer. It was definitely Storm. Absolutely, it was that guy. Alright, so we are now on our way to Chiron. We got a couple of steps left here to close out the game, but at this point, we've got everything we need. We are going through the motions.
I'm right at the edge of that figure.
So, in order to actually be able to fight Motto 1, you have to come here and talk to the wise men at the Chiron Temple, get an item from them, and then you have to go trigger the Chiron Massacre, which is done by going back to the front of Goa Fortress with the Sword of Thunder, and there's a trigger that will happen when you walk through here with the right item and having done the previous step. And then you'll go back to Chiron, and it will be different. You may have intuited what it is from the words Chiron Massacre.
It's just nap time. Chiron takes its nap seriously. Also, what is Stom doing to these people?
Stom, you monster.
Stom, officer, that guy that ran by the gate, he killed everybody here.
Alright, and this is Motto 1. This is the last boss we have to fight before heading to the end of the game.
Hey.
Yeah, like half the bosses in this game, in this seed, are weak to fire. Yeah, you can see having a bracelet makes a huge difference. It is definitely a game changer in doing all of this.
Alright, first question. I am not wasting opals?
It does not look like you are wasting any opals.
Okay.
Press one more time just to make sure.
I don't need these.
And you are clear to use opals.
Okay. And we can leave this bracelet open for just a little bit longer since I have all of them, but that's coming close real soon because we're ending the game now.
Snipers ready up.
Yeah, basically, the moment you see a big dragon guy on the screen, that is either your last chance or you've missed your last chance. But yeah, at this point, we're just going through the crypt. So those whirlpools out front and getting to this area in general is why you need flight. These two statues are destroyed by the Bow of Sun and the Bow of Moon. So that's why you need those. And then you will need the Bow of Truth when you get to the...
Oh, sweet, Christmas. I love this glitch.
You get to the last... Well, the second to last boss fight. Yeah. In terms of level, Mashma's level 13. Usually, if there's a setting where you can have the enemies in the tower at max scaling automatically, no matter how many items you actually found. That's not on here, but if you were running with that setting, most of the like competitive runners would say level 12 is probably fine. Level 12 with power ring and a bracelet, and you're good for tower. Like, you're all set. So having level 13 and not max scaling and a power bracelet or power ring and bracelets, like, this tower is going to be pretty easy, unless you go donate $2 to Sword of Water in like the next 2 minutes.
Oh, that's. I'm glad I have opals.
So, quick update. We have 2 donations that just came in. One from Just Chris for $10. Says, "Burr, it's feeling cold. Water for bracelet tower, water bracelet for tower." And then we have $10 from DH Stom. It says, "Frame me, huh? Well, let's see you get through the tower with Blizzard bracelet." So that is $20 to water bracelet.
I was gonna feel bad about framing you, Stom, but now I don't.
You know what? That's fair. All right. Ironically, Blizzard Bracelet is not a bad choice for Dragon 2 here. This is the final... I keep calling this the final boss fight. There is the boss fight after this, but this is the final boss that matters.
And he loves popcorn.
Even blue popcorn, for some reason. What do you flavor popcorn with that makes it blue? Like... I don't know. I feel like you probably should not be eating that popcorn. Suppose that's what barrier's for. Anyways, yeah, you kind of have to wait around until you until he opens up his weak spot, and then you can hit him. Usually 2 openings will do the job. Depending on your tools, 1 can do the job. But
all right, so Blizzard wins
with a total of $119. Yes, Blizzard wins.
Okay, here we go.
Alright, so this is the tower. There are 3 floors to the tower. Each floor has a wave of these gold robots. And once you destroy the gold robots, these little doorways that you see will each spawn a couple of white robots. Then you have to destroy all the white robots. And once you've done that, the stairs to the next floor open up. Repeat 2 more times, and then you are actually at the final boss fight. And you can see why Water Bracelet is the miserable experience that it is it has a tendency to just abruptly and randomly scatter the enemies and then drag them right into you. Mashima is actually doing quite a good job here of avoiding getting enemies dragged into him, but it's definitely kind of a pain.
I might have been practicing yesterday just in case.
It's smart, honestly.
Also, I was trying to point out earlier, I am still wearing bronze armor, which is basically paper. These things really hurt when they collide with me.
Yeah, honestly, having those opals is kind of a godsend right now. We have popped one of them, so...
One for each floor, you know?
Alright, we're on floor 2. One thing you do have to watch out for is the level 3 charge shots do use MP, which is why you may have noticed Mashima kind of hoarding magic rings throughout the seed. This is what they're for. It's just getting through tower as quickly as possible. Alright, our 2 gold robots down. We got R2-D2s. Were the other ones C-3POs?
Let's see, we'll see in a second.
I know at one point Steve talked about having sets of special names that are linked together so that you get, you know, R2-D2s and C-3POs. Some of the names are randomly renamed into various references when you have the community jokes flag on, or rather, the flag is to disable community jokes because they're on by default. All right, floor 2 down. Oh, they're
Oh,
not.
whoa!
And that one was excited to see you. Oh yeah, the entire time you're going through this tower, you also have to deal with these helicopters that constantly spawn. Thankfully, you never have to deal with more than one at a time, but one is certainly enough, because they're quite fast and they track you.
Good question. I don't know. Is HK-47 in the list for names, do you know?
I don't know.
Should be. That's another famous robot these could be. I'm thinking we're gonna burn another opal here.
It does seem that way. Although, you're almost done.
Oh, no!
Oh, there it goes. Yep. This is what you donated for, chat.
I was going to make a joke about none of the robots being able to say meat bag, but then that one bodied you, so I think that counts.
Alright, and that is the tower done. Thankfully, we still have... You used all your magic rings, right? You have one opal left.
Yep, that's it.
Thankfully, you only need about 100 MP to run barrier for the entire final boss fight, so this is not a problem. We're going to be done here very shortly, so get ready on time.
And this is the new safe spot if you have barrier.
Yep.
And here, shoot. General devices, just cover all the arrows.
The revenge beams that you see, the wider ones, those will go through barrier, but you are completely safe from them if you stand right there, and barrier takes care of everything else. And... time. GG, well played, Mashima. Some slight flashing lights warning at the end cutscene there.
Coming in with a very respectable 124.36.
Alright, not bad at all. I mean, the joke in the community is it's always an hour and a half.
Yep. It's always an hour 30.
Yeah.
Like magic.
Even if you're on the God route, still 90 minutes.
Yep.
Well, any shout outs you two would like to throw out before we toss it over to get set up for our next run?
I'd like to thank Just Chris. He recently joined our community, but he's been absolutely amazing at learning, and he's been slowly crushing, like, everyone. And the next time we do a tournament, I'm pretty afraid. And I also want to thank him for vetting this seed for me. It was a pretty fun seed he found.
Awesome.
I'll go some shout outs to Steve Hacks and J-Roboy, who are behind most of the cool things you've seen in the randomizer today. They've made this randomizer a whole lot of fun and highly, highly customizable. There are so many options, y'all. We didn't even talk about half of them. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you two so much for that amazing run. And we are going to go ahead and start getting set up for Final Fantasy VI Beyond Chaos. Chat, before we go ahead and throw it over to setup, I do want to remind you, we do have a character naming Bid War open. 5 characters is the 5-character limit max, but we can name the characters for the run. So while we're getting set up here, why don't we get some donations towards that incentive? And again, Mashima, Code Gorilla, thank you so much for that awesome run.
Thank you for having us.